Hello, and welcome to the Bio-Mech Battlefield. In this Learn to Play multi-part series, we'll be covering all you need to know to play Magic the Gathering, breaking it up into manageable sections, taking you from casual player to seasoned pro. In this episode, we'll be covering the pre-game segment, which includes player order, shuffling, mulligans, and pre-game actions. Let's begin with turn order. Turn order is decided after each player has shuffled their deck, but before any player has drawn their opening hand. This is done to prevent players giving themselves too much advantage with pre-game actions. Turn order is usually decided by each player rolling 1 or 2 six-sided dice, with the highest result winning, but can also be done with a flip of a coin or any other reasonable way that players decide. The winner gets to decide which player will go first for the first match of the game. The loser of the first match gets to decide who goes first in the second match. If the match is a draw, the person who previously decided the first player decides again. Next up, we'll discuss shuffling. Most people know how to shuffle a deck of cards in some way. In Magic the Gathering, you should shuffle your cards with the face pointing down. Shuffling at 90 degrees to your face allows for the possibility to see the front of your cards and may affect how you shuffle. You should not bridge shuffle your cards, as this may curve them, and certain cards may be considered marked if you can cut to that card in the deck due to the curve. After you have shuffled your deck, you should then present it to your opponent to reshuffle or cut your deck. To cut a deck, you simply take the stack from the top of the deck and place it to the side. Then put the lower stack on top. If you are not comfortable with your opponent shuffling your deck for whatever reason, you may ask a judge to do so instead. After decks have been shuffled, we move on to mulligans. Each player begins by drawing 7 cards from the top of their deck. Mulligans are done in turn order, with the first player choosing to mulligan or not, then the second player, and so on. This is done in this way as knowing if the other players will choose to mulligan may affect if a player wishes to do so or not. To mulligan, a player shuffles their hand back into their deck and draws 7 new cards, but puts 1 card to the bottom of their library for each hand they have drawn after their first. If a player chooses not to mulligan, they can no longer choose to do so after the other players have done so. Mulligans continue until each player has decided their opening hand. Obviously, the more times a player mulligans, the less cards they have in their opening hand and the more disadvantage they gain. 1 card can affect mulligans. That card is called Serum Powder, a 3 mana value artifact that states, anytime you could mulligan and Serum Powder is in your hand, you may exile all the cards from your hand and draw that many cards. Now, the reason you may do this is that you want to reduce the number of cards in your deck to a certain strategy, or you have cards in your deck that allow you to play them from exile. Doing this does not affect you being allowed to mulligan the next time you would have priority to. As far as I'm currently aware, this is the only card that affects mulligans. Finally, for this episode, we have pre-game actions. Before play begins, each player in turn order makes any pre-game actions available to them that they wish to do so. These include revealing cards from your hand that allow you to do so to gain an advantage at the beginning of the game, or putting permanents onto the battlefield that state that you can begin the game with them in play if they are in your opening hand. An example of a revealed card is Chancellor of the Annex, a creature that states you may reveal it from your opening hand, and if you do so, the first spell each of your opponents cast during this match costs 1 more generic mana to cast, or they are countered. An example of a card you can start with in play is Gemstone Caverns, a legendary land that states that if you are not the starting player of this match, you may begin with it on the battlefield with a luck counter at the cost of exiling 1 card from your hand. This allows Gemstone Caverns to tap for any colour of mana. There are a few other cards that allow you to take pre-game actions, so make sure you allow people to do these before beginning the first turn of the game. And that brings us to the end of our episode. Thanks for listening. You can find me on Discord, or if you wish to see more of my content, you can find me on Instagram at Bio-Mech-MGT. Thanks again.